Okay, so we're going to call this meeting to order for the Finance Committee. I'm the Vice Chair, and since the Chair's not here, I guess it means I have to run the meeting, which isn't very much. Get a roll call, please.
Vice Chair Miller?
Here.
Director Givens?
Here.
Alternate Director Rennie?
Here.
Thank you. And I just would like to note that Tony Enda was appointed to this group at our December board meeting. However, he was not reappointed as our alternate for Milpitas, therefore he is not here today.
Oh.
Okay, so we're going to get all kinds of assignment changes in the coming weeks. Any member of the public wish to speak on a non-agendized item? Seeing none, moving on. Item number 1, approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are up to our regular calendar investment strategy overview.
Thank you, Vice Chair Miller. So we do have guests from Bank of America and Merrill Lynch to talk about investment strategies and how that can help SVCE. About 5-6 months ago, I reached out to Bank of America through a recommendation from Mike Conner, and just to be prudent to consider other investment options as we accumulated cash quickly. And I think they're here today and representatives to talk about not only services they can offer us, but also just some general market intelligence that hopefully you'll find beneficial. With that, I'll yield to Hasib, Bank of America.
Thank you very much, Don. Greatly appreciate the opportunity for us to be here. I'm Hasib Chaudhary, Senior Relationship Manager with Bank of America Commercial Banking. With me, I have my team, Lars Anderslien, who is the Sales Manager, runs the Treasury. Sheila Whitman, my right-hand person for the Treasury. Joshua Miller, who is our Community Relationship Manager. Jonathan and Manny, who are financial advisors on Bank of America's financial side. And we acknowledge the Silicon Valley Bank's mission is to provide clean, sustainable energy. And Bank of America has a huge commitment to environmental social governance. And with that, I will pass on to Josh to speak briefly about our commitment to ESG and also what Bank of America has done with the foundation for Silicon Valley, especially market.
Great, thanks. Hi, Josh Russell. So I'm part of our local market president team, specifically focused around Silicon Valley, San Mateo, and Santa Clara counties. And so my job is to work with our nonprofit partners and help in partnership with the Bank of America Charitable Foundation, so getting investments into the community, and then getting our employees engaged now, volunteering, stuff like that. So I just wanted to share a little bit about our ESG platform. Do I have you?
Sure.
Just a little bit about, you go to the next.
No, we never ended up in presentation mode.
Yeah, start, yeah, one more. Thanks.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, that's what it is.
So just a little bit about our Bank of America's ESG platform, our environmental, social, and governance. This is how we run all of what we do. And I'll show you a little bit just from a high level standpoint, and then I thought I'd just speak a little bit more specifically about what we're doing in Silicon Valley. So on the environmental side, I mean, it's things like financing a transition to a low carbon economy, addressing demands of natural resources, minimizing our footprint, et cetera. On the social side, that's really where all of our community investments are, making sure our workplace is inclusive and supportive, and all that we're doing to advance social and economic mobility. And then our governance is really how we make sure we're managing our risk and make sure we're in compliance and acting ethically. So if you go to the next one, please. So again, you can see here in terms of what we're doing on an enterprise level, from environmental, all three of our areas. I think I'll just point out on the environmental side, the whole idea around minimizing our environmental footprint and goals in 2020 to be 100% carbon neutral and 100% renewable electricity. So I'll just share just a couple of examples specifically on the environment side, if you can go just to the next one, locally. So you can see obviously what's happening here on a national basis, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. Again, I'll just focus on the environment in Silicon Valley. So in March, Bank of America partnered with the U.S. Green Building Council and created a Lead for Cities program, which is the first of its kind. City of San Jose was one of 6 initial cities that essentially it's a grants program. And so really interesting process, and the other cities, Washington DC, Chicago, Phoenix, others, but this is a big deal. This was again in March of last year. We announced it, and it's a multi-year program, and there's training and support, but essentially it's getting the city to ultimately LEED Platinum certification. So that's pretty neat. And then in March too, locally we joined with Stanford's new Strategic Energy Alliance, which the whole idea is developing financial instruments, reducing costs and environmental risks for clean energy products, and finding some innovations in the sector. So again, and then for us on a day-to-day basis, again with kind of an environmental focus, we're reducing our paper and footprints and all that stuff. But those two were really kind of big deals in this area, so I wanted to call those out. And then the next one, the social side, and this is, if you go to the next slide, please, thank you. Social side, this is really where, in terms of our community investments and what we're doing with our employees. And so I'll just speak a little bit on the Bank of America Foundation side. So our whole focus is around moving the needle of economic mobility, and so for individuals and families and communities. And we do that through by funding organizations that are workforce development and basic needs, and then that are making a difference in the community. So environmental organizations, affordable housing, and arts and culture are kind of the main focuses. So we've got about 50 organizations, 50 nonprofits that we support. I'm sure many that you all know, the Second Harvest Food Banks and Sacred Hearts and some smaller ones. And then on the environment side, Prospect Silicon Valley used to be the Bay Area Climate Collaborative, which was a program that actually came out of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, which you guys were talking about earlier. But they're a big partner of ours. We just started funding Save the Bay and Habitat for Humanity, and we get our employees into big Habitat for Humanity builds every year, things like that. We also get our employees out in the community volunteering and making a difference. So we've got about 1,600 employees in the 2 counties, and each year we put in about 11,000 volunteer hours just among those employees, and doing all sorts of things, habitat builds and sorting food and all that. In December, we did a big volunteer activity with Grid Alternatives, where we actually installed solar panels for a low-income home in East Palo Alto. So that was kind of a neat thing the first time we had done that. And let's see, and then we sponsored, I don't know if anyone attended the Hispanic Foundation, Silicon Valley, they did their Latino report card, so we actually sponsored the environmental section in that report card, which was the highest grade of all the different sections, and facilitated some breakout sessions around that. And then, from an employee engagement standpoint, we got our employees just in November, launched our first My Environment Employee Network, which is one of the first My Environment employee networks in California, and so it's all employee driven, and folks are getting other employees involved, and we've done some other volunteer activities and donating clothing and shoes and planning a beach cleanup and stuff like that. So anyway, those are just a few of the things, and I'm happy to ask questions. If you go to the next, this is the last one. This is obviously a lot of information, but I'll just want to highlight one of our signature programs from our foundation, which is called a Neighborhood Builders Program, which every year we identify 2 nonprofits that are that receive $200,000 over 2 years, and then leadership training for both the executive director and an emerging leader. So the idea is that these are supposed to be transformational types of grants that really help nonprofits get to the next level. So we just announced West Valley Community Services in Cupertino, and
They do our RIDE program.
oh, they do? Yeah, they're a fantastic organization.
Josh and Chris.
Yeah.
I just met with Josh this week.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was emailing with him today, as a matter of fact. But yeah, he's one of my. I mean, he's only been in the role 2 or 3 years, but doing great stuff. So, and then SV at Home is the other one. So, anyway, two great organizations, and we've got other programs, and we're supporting students and all that. But just wanted to highlight a few things, and you can see just our philanthropic investments in Silicon Valley since 2013, and volunteer hours and amount of money that our employees have contributed to the community. So I know we have a lot, but I just wanted to share a little bit from that side. So if you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer, or we can do that at the end.
I have one,
Yeah.
maybe one question so far. I saw almost 10% of your financing went to nuclear. Is there actually new nuclear going on?
That's a good question. I don't know from the national standpoint,
Not in the state
but
of California.
yeah,
But
right.
in Texas, they're building a couple.
Are they? Maybe you did it in Texas then.
Yeah.
Well, I'll invite Lars to talk about the leadership in commercial banking and our marketplace. So, Lars.
Thanks, Steve. So, so business banking is part of our group called Global Commercial Banking. As the slide shows, we basically cover sales sizes of anywhere from 5 million in revenue all the way up to 2 billion. We actually have two groups within that: our business banking, which is the representation of Sheila and Hasid, which is 5 million to 50 million in revenue, and then we have our middle market group, which is usually about 50 million to 2 billion. I'd say in the Bay Area, just because of some of the complexities of, I'd say, our business banking clients, we do go up a little bit. So that's kind of a gray area, if you will. Also, from a standpoint of in global commercial banking, obviously we serve quite a few companies in the U.S. 1 in 4. In the global commercial banking standpoint, obviously from being one of the largest banks in the U.S., we not only have capabilities locally, domestically, but we can leverage our footprint where we have branch licenses outside of the United States and several countries. So from any needs from a trade, FX, etc., it's something that we just tack on to our capabilities. And then lastly, obviously closely aligned with our other bank partners to deliver the bank as a whole. Obviously, we've got our Merrill partners in the room here. We do a lot of focus around being able to basically, if our customers are happy with a certain business unit, whether it's on the personal side, on the GWIM side, on U.S. Trust, etc., there's a lot of focus on making sure that they get a full perspective of the different routes within the bank that they can be supported by, not only on the business side, but also on the consumer side. So there's a lot of interlinkage, there's a lot of making sure everybody kind of connects and meets with each other. So that's really overview of global commercial banking.
Before you go on, just, you gave some thresholds of sizes of businesses.
Yeah.
So the group in this room is 5 million to 50 million?
Well, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's our standard across the U.S., if you will. So looking at different markets, the major markets like New York, San Francisco, Chicago, Los Angeles, etc., because of the number of clients that fall kind of, I'd say, in the space at the higher end of our realm, we go up market, or so to speak, our expansion is beyond the 50 million, so we typically go, say, 100-ish million in revenue. So in major markets like a San Francisco, we do extend that, but across the U.S., it's kind of more 5 to 50.
Because our forecasted revenue number is outside of your range.
Yes, and how
Significantly.
Yeah, to add that, we have our middle market group also involved with this process. They're very familiar with Silicon Valley Clean Energy. We had discussions in the past with middle market group, one of the partners who had joined our call with Don, and we looked at that as far as Lars mentioned, complexities. What is the need of a client? So if the need is at the beginning to be able to do and provide the liquidity management and cash management, and then later on take on the larger lines of credit, then we bring in our partners from the middle market group. So it's a very seamless process. We all sit in the same building. They're only a floor below us, and they've been part of those discussions right from the beginning.
Yeah, so it is a difference between major markets, though, between the major markets and across the U.S. And how we structure it. But that being said, Steve brings a good point, is we're always in contact with our middle market group.
So I have like personally a couple of clients who goes up to $150 million. You know, so depending on the client's need.
Or bigger than that too.
Well,
It's just part of
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
understand how the
Yeah.
system works, and I don't want to be the round
No, it's a
peg
great question.
in the square hole,
Yeah.
or the the one tropical fish in the bowl of goldfish.
Yeah.
Right, I mean,
You brought up a great point, and that's where I was going at towards the end, but I'll bring it up now. That you look at Bank of America as a big, huge bank. The way our group works, whether it's as Lars mentioned, global commercial banking, we're all part of like one big unit, but we make it very small to our clients. So they have been in discussions with part of our discussions. We see what the need of the clients are. And if the need decides that the client needs to be in one side or the other, we'll make that decision very quickly. You know, and if down the road a larger line of credit comes in, and even some of the discussions that we had of public finance group, we had those discussions also. Some of the members have talked to Don, and I believe also Girish in the past, some of our members from the public finance group. So those discussions have had happened. You know, whether it was assisting Silicon Valley Clean Energy in being able to get to when you may want to issue a bond down the road. What Bank of America be able to do and assist.
Yeah, I think it was more like
General
obtain the
credit
credit rating.
Yes, to obtain the credit rating. So.
right? Okay.
That's a good point. So just on top of the, kind of going towards more of some of the numbers as far as how we're rated, and it's taking a look actually at a 2018, some, I'd say, some important recognition that's beyond what's on this list, because this kind of scopes over the past couple of years, as well as some of the 2018 numbers that I like to see, and I think are kind of more telling of the culture and the community within the team we have here, especially as, you know, Hasib and I have worked together for 15 years, Sheila and I have worked together for at least 10 years, so the culture is pretty strong within, I'd say, the Bay Area, and the recognition for Bank of America itself that speaks to that culture. You know, Fortune magazine rated us as one of the top 100 best workplaces to work for as far as diversity goes. Black Enterprise magazine also rated us in the same way. Fortune magazine also rated us one of the 50 best workplaces for parents. PL plus US, which is an advocacy policy for public leave, ranked us as the 3rd best companies for families. We hit the 30th consecutive year top 100 best companies to work for working mothers, and also one of the top companies to work for women technologists. I thought these all came out in our recent financial results, and I think it's one thing that speaks to our culture within the bank, and the teammates that we have here in the room have been with us for that amount of time also. So those were some information that came out recently in the financials that are outside of kind of some of these rankings here. So the next slide, and then after this, I'll go over a high level, just some of these numbers. I recognize that this sheet says Q3 18, just to update, again, taking from our recent financial results, just a highlight of a recent conversation we had with Moynihan to the team. On Q4 18, our net income was up 7.3 billion, so similar track as Q3. Our revenue net interest expense was up 22.7 billion. Again, another quarter, back-to-back quarters where we've seen increases of close to 4%. And then our, total assets, deposits under our hat is 1.34 trillion, and loans leases around 935 billion. So these are all came out Q4, so not on this sheet, but just wanted to talk about that. And then global banking specifically, so our group here, the combined that we talked about earlier, we've seen our net interest margin increase for a record amount, 25% over Q4. We've seen our increase in balances come to us from our clients, whether it's new clients or growth, up 9%, and then the loans that we've done over the past quarter is up 2%. Overall, we've seen 16 consecutive quarters where our revenues are greater than our expenses, so obviously a positive operating. So those are kind of some of the numbers that we've pulled from recent financials on how we're doing. And I'd say this all fits under the umbrella of not only Global Bank, but our enterprise as a whole, obviously under Brian Moynihan's guidance since he's taken over. We've been very focused on responsible growth in every mean that from touching social and environment, as well as making sure that we're driving our bottom line, but while also still able to take care of our clients and our employees. I kind of wanted to make sure I talked about the rankings just from a standpoint of that culture still is around and is growing and getting more positive. And I think the last comment, because it applies to Sheila and I's world, is around mobile. Obviously, Bank of America's consumer app is ranked number one as far as a business banking or a banking app. And we've released on our platform a mobile app tied to our Cash Pro, which is our online business platform. And that mobile app has been around, and we've seen about 186% growth in 2018. And we're leveraging the technology and the technologists that have helped our mobile app for consumers help with growing that and enhancing that on our business platform.
So you gave us lots of magazines and organizations that have said how great you are, and it's a great place for small business to bank, but what really does that mean? I mean, the first things that come to my mind is if we call with a problem, we don't get passed from department to department. We get people that know what they're doing. We don't have to wait 45 minutes on hold kind of thing. Those are first things come to my mind, but explain to me what makes you so great for small business.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'll let you guys jump in. So as far as the being great for a small business, so we take a very local approach. It's been a change of policy since Moynihan's taken on, is really getting our team out in the market. So you have a Hasif here locally, you have a Sheila here locally. Both of them have support staff that's based here locally.
What's local?
San Francisco, my office is based in San Francisco. We have a similar team who's also based in Sunnyvale. We have Santa Fe office. So different parts of major cities that we have our presence in as far as the offices are concerned. So that's what Lars is mentioning. So if our client is calling, they're not mostly majority calling our 1-800 number. They're reaching out to me and our support staff. We all sit in 555 California Street along with my partners who are at Merrill Lynch. So we just have to go a floor up or a floor down or a door left or a door right.
We won't hold it against you that Donald Trump owns 49% of your building.
Thank you. Rob, if I
For disclosure, my grandfather was executive vice president of the fourth largest bank in the world, and my family, we've been shareholders of Bank of America since 1962. And having grown up in the Bay Area, we watched the building built, we watched it sold, we watched Bank of America be totally reformed and transformed and moved to another state.
North Carolina.
And I own Bank of America stock and Bank of America preferred still too, so I know a lot about the bank.
Thank you very much. We appreciate
And your building.
We are in that building.
Rob, if I can add to your question here, I think Lars and Hasif talked to really our ability through our local coverage team to bring a really big organization like Bank of America Merrill Lynch and give it that community feel. But I think what we're able to add is still utilizing sort of the Bank of America platform and delivering sort of a breadth and depth of solutions that some of our community bank partners or our peers may not be able to do. So they can give the customer service side, but they may not be able to utilize innovation and technology, for instance, like Lars had described. So what stands us out in the market, I think, is we were able to deliver a small bank feel with the large bank platform.
So I'm assuming what that means is if we want a certain product that's in some department over here, you're gonna be the bridge. We just have to work with you. We don't have to go to this department for this product and some other department for another product kind of thing.
Yes,
Correct.
you actually got it right.
Similar to what Hasib mentioned when he had this, discussions with Dot, depending on certain needs, he was able to pull certain partners to be part of those discussions, but Hasib and myself included would be sort of your initial points of
So what services do you think you can bring to bear for us? Let's get down to what we.
It's great lead-in.
I know I couldn't have paid you for that lead-in because that really is the next section. And really this is our full suite of solutions. So from a cash management perspective, and that's sort of the hat that I sit in, we take a look at these different sort of areas in a company and help them and provide sort of tools and helping them with your receipts, your payables. We're taking a look at your liquidity and how to manage risk with your liquidity. We're taking a look at fraud protection tools. As you can imagine, any money that's sitting in accounts, we want to make sure that you guys have access to protecting it from potential check fraud or ACH fraud. And then the platform really is, again, giving you access to technology to make these process efficient, real time, and things like that. So we have, these are all the services that we can provide from a cash management perspective. We have beyond those.
Go ahead.
Pardon the interruption.
No.
So, from my perspective, we have, I'm going to say, a split brain of payments. We have our customer payments, and then we have our own cash flow as an organization. You're speaking to our cash flow as an organization.
We're speaking to the whole spectrum, the whole cash cycle.
We have our money being collected. And are you saying that and Dawn, if I'm asking the question properly?
No, you are, yeah.
Okay.
I think really the focus or the discussion item today would be the services in that middle box and the investment solutions and under the liquidity and risk. It's probably where we probably need to focus right now. We're not ready yet for what you're talking about, which is the lockbox. Maybe we could move to the more on the investment.
The liquidity, yes. So the next couple slides are around footprints. We're happy to speak to that at a later date. But if we go on to liquidity management, again, really quickly, we take a look at liquidity and investment priorities. We take a customized approach. We've had initial discussions with Don and others to talk about your needs, your full liquidity needs, and we try to understand what your objectives are and so forth before we design some type of proposed solution. Yes, Liz.
Go ahead.
Okay. So we understand the full breadth of what you offer.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. We're focusing in on specifically what I think we're looking for now, which I believe to be that we have money coming in and money going out for our contracts. We also have reserve accounts.
Yes.
So you're speaking to both types of our regular, I'm going to call it cash flow bill paying, which is substantive amount of money.
Yeah.
And then we have our reserve accounts, which is also substantive amount of money.
Yes.
Okay, so as you go through,
Yes.
keep those 2 points in mind to help me follow you.
Yes. So the next slide will actually be a visual. We took a look at, Andrea, if we can get to the next slide. These are the sample liquidity structures. So we talked about the reserve cash and then sort of the fund, the operating cash that you have. And so we recognize that there are some nuances with your current banking structure that we have to be sensitive to. And so we basically built these models to be complementary to your current existing structure. What we've essentially done based on your investment policies, we were informed that you would be allowed to invest in interest-bearing accounts in FDIC-insured institutions like a Bank of America. And then you would look at potentially CDs, certificate of deposits, with tenures not to exceed 12 months.
And currently in our investment policy, we're limited to not more than 1 year. And maybe you guys want to maybe comment on the current market and why that is probably a valid strategy right now with the 1 year.
Yeah, so Jonathan Thompson again, here with Manny on the Merrill Lynch side. So within this huge enterprise, we can talk all the day about that. What we like to do is boil it down into how do we take the best economic research strategies, all those things, in the market environment and relate it to what's valuable to the organization. And so the reality is, someone mentioned someone in the administration owning part of our building. Well, there's a risk there, obviously inherent. You have trade issues with China. You have Federal Reserve comments being made. Our base case as a firm is that the Federal Reserve might raise 1, if not 2 times this year. If you're looking at on how the street's pricing things right now, the market's pricing things, they're actually thinking that it might not be much of a chance for any raise this year and maybe a cut next year. We do think that our economy is actually on pretty good ground right now. That can change relatively quickly, given the risk that we just discussed. But in our view, when you're looking at any type of investment policy statement, it's good to have some flexibility with regards to changing landscapes and dynamics. So our role would be to hopefully just provide some education, information, help you make better decisions about what's best for the organization. And so the reality is we've provided some counsel to clients right now about being very high quality, staying very short term on instruments, and making sure that you understand there probably will be volatility over the near term, and just be prepared for that.
To the extent that there are half a dozen at least headwinds before us in a slowing economy, and after the longest bull run in history, we should expect a lot of volatility. But volatility, in our opinion, at Merrill Lynch, is a lot of opportunity. But there has to be enough flexibility in the investment policy statement should the Finance Committee decide to take advantage of it. So that is one of the major areas of focus, is looking at the investment policy statement, or to what extent that Merrill Lynch or any experts can come in, consider not amending it, adjusting it to take advantage of these opportunities.
Question. Sure. Do you do work for other cities in managing their portfolio? Similar to what because we are public agencies at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
California public agencies, so we have certain rules
Right.
that we have to follow.
Yeah.
Who are you doing work for?
I can come back to you with that who currently, which cities that we have worked with, or what cities that we are currently working with.
And are you currently talking with Monterey?
Yes, we are.
Community?
Yes, we are also talking to Monterey Community Clean Energy about obviously also their reserve cash, or the cash that they have, and they're not maximizing the interest that they can, given some of the limitations that currently that they have, the bank can provide them. So that's where we had this chart set up, or the pie chart set up, that where we could maximize your yield, whether we'll be keeping you in a fully liquid, portion of that, we could divide it into either a 3-month or a 6-month CDs, or a 9-month, not to exceeding 12 months given your current policy. So what Manny is saying is that what we are proposing right here is having a mix. What that mix is, then further discussion with Don and you guys on what is my cash, how am I going to maximize my extra cash that I have, not including the operating risk, the money that you need to keep.
If I may follow up on
Sure.
Teresia's question. We really want to know your track record dealing with municipal organizations and understanding what our constraints are.
Yes. Yeah.
So Don, do we have access to Lake?
I'm sorry, what was it?
Do we have access to Lake?
Local.
We do. We have not done anything with that, but it's in, we could.
Well, that's our risk-free 100% liquid, and it was 2.4 last month.
That's what our city uses too.
Yeah, all the cities use Lake. So
Yeah.
I shouldn't say all. Many of us smaller cities
I'd like to understand the non-liquidity a little bit more.
Sure.
Is that just because you don't want a lot of trading in a certain fund, or are you expecting to trade in bonds that maybe nobody wants to buy them for 6 months at a time, and so there's no way you could sell them? I mean, what causes the lack of liquidity? Because I know you might end up buying a bond that all of a sudden becomes not liquid because nobody wants it.
Yeah, I was referring more on the certificate of deposit sites, but for the bonds, I'm going to refer it to Jonathan.
Yeah, I would say probably for the part of this meeting, on the corporate side, I don't think we were really prepared to talk about corporate bonds per se on that. But based on what we know so far, it's really subject to cash, money market, CDs, if you will, very high quality. That could be a later discussion to follow up on that issue.
So why would those not be liquid then?
Oh, well, any corporate bond could, yeah, that could be liquid, but the liquidity and what the market's pricing at could be two different things
Yeah, by
there.
the time you cover the spread, even if you're at the same price, you're in the hole a lot, and then.
It could be, correct.
And then there is the price fluctuations. So if you modeled this, given our current investment portfolio, these are all bonds that would be maturing in the next year anyway.
Correct, so that could be one solution. Higher quality,
hold them to
shorter
maturity.
term, correct.
So whether you go into the bond liquidity or you stay on the FDIC insured products, given that your policy state that you need to have any maturity for 12 months or less,
Right.
that's what we came with. And now this is just a sample. This is why we are here to see and hear from you, also to have that, what is your feedback on it, so that we could come to a combined solution, with the input from both parties.
Well, maybe, I'm used to seeing, I think the law says you can go out 5 years, and here are the different instruments you can invest in. So I'm looking for advice on how would you optimize our portfolio given that? And
Are you referring to a bond or a trade which could go up to 5 years?
from what I understand, as a public agency,
Mm-hmm.
we have certain rules on how we can invest our funds,
Yes, sir.
and you can't go more than 5 years.
You can't go to a bond or CD or something that's more than a term more than 5 years.
So there's of all the investment, then you can do 1 year CDs, 2 years, all that kind of stuff. And then there's a bunch typically public agencies tend to put in late. I haven't seen corporate bonds. So that would be something that's interesting for me to see how it fits into that matrix.
And our policy says we don't want to invest anything more than a year, but
Yes,
as we get $60–80 million, we don't need all of that to be available in 1 year probably. I mean, what's the worst case scenario? So we might want to adjust our policy to say no more than half can be more than a year, or something to that extent.
It would
And
start
that's
with,
right, that's exactly, I think Manny was referring on there.
it would start with that. And right now, it's constrained to the investment policy statement. This might be an opportune time with all the headwinds, what we're expecting, where the market's headed, to take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
You may not want to go 5 years. You might be able to go 5 years. You may not want to go more than 2 years. But at the moment, you can't.
Right.
So that's a little bit of the issue here.
That's really the point of this presentation is to start that discussion.
So Donald, this presentation is really just confined to cash management.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Because currently you have a relationship with a small community bank who has a niche with working with public agencies or startup public agencies. So as you grow and have more years of financials, with a nonprofit that we saw that you guys have done a phenomenal job there, and then moving on to a larger bank, especially given that you are also looking to have a Moody's rating, and they may look for having a mix of a relationship also with a larger bank, which could probably assist you in getting a better rating also.
If I may, in terms of our services, it's not only dealing with our team, and say if we're working with Don, the investment policy statement has been amended to go longer, but we can bring the resources, we can bring the money managers directly to your team, not just through us. So we make the introductions to whatever professional money managers, if it's fixed income, get some intelligence in terms of what they're seeing in the markets to help bring enough facts to this committee to make the best decision for their portfolio.
And going back to what you said was what makes us unique, that is exactly what makes us unique, is having an access to a lot of resources which could bring you the intelligence and those reports for you to be able to make those decisions which way we want to go or what part of our income we want to invest into a longer bond.
What do you need from us today, Don?
This is strictly a discussion item, just to start the conversation. And I think if there's no more questions for the group, you guys get back up to San Francisco. We still have a couple more items to cover. But I think this was just a kickoff to start having this discussion of what to do with the surplus.
And you'll have to tell us exactly what we're doing. Because I'm not exactly sure where our money's sitting right now.
Currently, we have it all in most of it in a money market fund, the River City Bank. So this is an opportunity to maybe consider other options that River City Bank can offer.
Exactly. River City was good because they were sort of in this CCA space early
Yes.
enough. They knew what we were trying to do.
Yes.
And we couldn't even have the conversation with Bank of America. It was didn't match at all. But as you know, we now have a good balance sheet and a good
Yes.
cash flow, and we're profitable. So
Yes.
it's an easier discussion with Bank of America.
Yes.
So I thank you guys for coming down.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate
you
you
all
all.
coming down.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll get back to you.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Take care. Thank you. See you.
Yeah, I had one problem with Bank of
We'll get back
America
to you.
once,
Yeah.
a letter that we wrote to the
Thank you.
CEO saying that we were shareholders since
Yeah.
'62.
Thank you.
My wife got a share when she was born, her parents were with the bank.
That's very cool.
So that's what
Okay.
they
Yeah,
That's
All right,
my
take
first
care.
account.
Yeah.
Anyway,
don't wanna go,
no,
just
okay.
go.
Okay, got it. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it. Finally, you're getting a name to the face.
Yeah.
You know.
Nice to meet you. Couple cards.
Jason, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
the presentation.
Yes.
Howard,
We'll follow up.
fantastic question. Yeah, thank you. You have my card. If you have anything, please feel free to reach out.
Okay, thanks.
I was
Thank you.
SVO.
Oh.
I am.
Liz, it's so nice to meet you.
don't, you
Oh, you don't, I don't want to? Okay.
You don't want to
I won't.
I think it probably did go.
Those who are employees sitting as far away from you as they can.
This is a clever idea, you know.
Right on camera.
So you know who's smart. On Monday you're gonna come sniffling in and then it's gonna be all my fault.
Okay, we're gonna move along just because I know we're gonna run out of time. Let's do our financial review.
In case I want to make sure that I was going to ask the committee if they would be okay with moving the item 4 to item 3 on the line of credit, just because it's a much more pertinent topic right now.
Well, his parents live in Los Gatos, so I gotta pander to him.
I like an honest politician, pandering and everything. Sorry.
Okay, so we are talking about expanding the line of credit. This would be with River City Bank, and so why even consider a line of credit back in September? We were looking at flexibility, negotiating credit terms for our power suppliers, ability to substitute cash for a letter of credit, collateral, which we have done with PG&E, as well as just having that extra insurance. So back in September, the board approved a $20 million line of credit with River City Bank. That's in place for a year.
You can just jump to the recommendation, we know what's going on.
You got it, okay. So, new challenge, obviously you're all aware of the pending bankruptcy with PG&E. I think, and Rishi, you want to maybe comment on this as well, you've been at the front line of this with their CCAs as well as the attorneys, but there seems that there's a low risk of user fees not being transferred to SVCE, so the cash flow is going to flow. However, there is risk of posting collateral for suppliers not agreeable to lockbox. This just came up recently where we put out RFP for power supply. Power supplier came back and said we don't want access to your lockbox because of the PG&E bankruptcy, and actually may come back and say we need collateral, and this is where this expansion of the letter of credit would help us out to preserve our cash. And then other risks that will evolve as this bankruptcy proceeds, before I leave this slide, maybe you want to add anything to that, or?
I was just gonna say, I read the confidential letter, and then, of course, yesterday afternoon, they came out saying that they weren't responsible for the Tubbs fire. So, are they still scheduled to file the bankruptcy on Tuesday?
Well, that's the small fire.
I know, but I'm just curious if they really do notify, or does it matter right now for us?
It doesn't matter with respect to this. In fact, this uncertainty will continue to hang over this industry as long as inverse condemnation is not resolved. That risk is going to be just something that the market will respond to. So whether they file bankruptcy on the 29th or not, as of this morning, they still are planning on filing Jan 29th. Things could change. But that's also part of the reason when there's uncertainty, rumors, people respond to perception, they may be asking for more collateral, so just having a little more liquidity is...
That's a good clarification, thank
We're
you.
going to need it.
So, recommendation, we reached out to, Grish and I reached out to River City Bank as well as other banks to gauge interest. We did get one offer from a bank with a large ceiling on a line of credit, but it wasn't competitive in price. And then also, I think though that did help with the conversations with River City Bank, that they knew that we were talking to other banks. They came back and offered us the highest they can go in offering a line of credit to increase it from 20 million to 35 million. The fees on this would be essentially about another 30,000 to transact this. Commitment fees, very minimal legal fees. Because what we're going to bring to you is an amended, not much at all. So we basically would amend the agreement that the board approved in September, and with the expanded line of credit, and that'll keep the fees down.
This is a very temporary line of credit.
This will end in October this year.
Yeah, so this is...
Correct. Our current agreement is 1 year.
Right.
Yeah, correct.
So
And they'll
this is
prorate.
coterminous on that.
Right.
Just gets added on.
And the incremental fees related to this will be prorated for the remainder of the year up to October.
So what's the value of the whole thing? Around 60,000?
Well, it's going to be 30,000 for the incremental, plus it was about 25 for the original 20,000. So yeah, somewhere around that $60,000 range. And also with the 35 million and looking at what we have in the bank right now, this will give us around 180 days, 6 months coverage. So that puts us in very good shape for the remainder of this year.
We'll go to the end. I got some comments at the end, I think.
These are just, we talked about the other offers. And so next steps are, we'd like to get your feedback today. If you are good with this, Rich and I will pursue the amended agreement and bring it to the board in the February board meeting for approval. So that concludes the presentation.
I just add to this, I expect, based on the discussion here, we're thinking of adding it to the consent calendar. This is part of, we've kept the board apprised on additional risks. We've talked about the kind of reserves we are looking for, the 180 days also. So getting your feedback on that would also be good.
I have no issue with this, and we should do this. We need this, I think consent, get this done right away. But my issue is a little bit more basic, which is, we're going to need a longer term safety net than October. And when we did it, it was like it was a year, and that seemed fine, and you hadn't foreseen these things. But again, my observation always is when you need money, you can't get money.
Yep.
And this only gets us to October, and we all know where PG&E is going to be in October. In bankruptcy, probably no place. We'll still be duking out stuff in the ground level.
Why don't we go back?
It seems like there's some other follow-on.
Yes.
Like, is there a way to extend this, some terms pre-decide how we're going to get this extended, or, which may actually be a better strategy, find another bank that's willing to give us a line of credit so we can have sort of overlapping, rolling lines of credit.
So if it's okay with the board, maybe the direction is bring it to the board as is, and also direct us to explore a longer term with even this. I think we can talk to our River City Bank right away to see if we can get a longer term on even this one. And the second piece is maybe there's approaching other banks for additional LOC flexibility too, because they are capped at 36 million by law. RCB regulation, they can't go more than 36 million. So they're tapped out essentially with us. So we can look at other banks
It's
too.
interesting, they're willing to give it all to us if I follow that.
No, they can give
No,
this
per
to other
per entity.
organizations. They get their money, and the extension will be the same thing. It will be how much money
Yes.
to compensate them for the risk.
Correct.
And any other bank, it's going to be, everybody's going to want to know our total credit worthiness. I mean, you can't borrow an infinite amount of money.
So do we have a risk if we sell our RA to PG&E? PG&E is supposed to be, the ISU now needs to procure all the local RA. We've got local RA we need to unload. If we sell it to PG&E, are we at risk of not getting paid?
So this will be part of their first day motions, which is there's operations that they have to continue to do. So anything that happens after bankruptcy, from what I understand, is actually going to be fine.
So as soon as they're bankrupt, then we should sell them things?
You definitely don't want to be caught in the transition right now
Correct.
where you've sold but not gotten payment.
It's the current contracts that they have. As part of the first day motions and even later on, they'll have to make the decision whether to assume those contracts or reject the contracts. And they do not have to make that decision on day one. There may be some things, and that's what those first day motions will see, what they're assuming and what they're rejecting. But they could do that in the process too. So it's everything pre-bankruptcy could be up for grabs. Post-bankruptcy, that's where they have debtor in possession financing. The bankruptcy code basically approves all their operations.
Let's keep it going. So you guys okay with that recommendation? Let's bring this and let's get them to look at some longer options.
Yes.
I think on the longer options, again, because they'll only let us borrow so much money in general, there could be the strategy if River City's going to extend, we may not want to extend it to 35 million level, we might want to go back to the 20 million so you can get 20 million from another bank. Otherwise it's 35 plus another bank, and you know, as your ratios change, your rates go up and they start worrying about us.
Good feedback.
Great.
It even makes sense to me.
Oh, something's really gone wrong. Okay, are we good with this item? I guess that's our official
Is your
recommendation.
recommendation clear enough?
It is, thank you.
Okay, and
Keep this, okay.
Line 3.
so we do the financial review already? There we go.
And we'll keep this brief.
Pretty short.
Thank you. So, we're going through the audit now. The financials that you'll see in this presentation should be about 99% of what you'll see in the audited financial statements presentation in the February board meeting. And just to reemphasize that we ended the fiscal year minimum target for our reserves, so no cash. Strong position to weather the financial risk of 2019, and we'll talk more about that. And as I mentioned, the financials ongoing, so the numbers here presenting in this year in review are preliminary, but very close to where we're going to land. So just to look at the change in net position, profit and loss, if you will. Our revenue, and again, the percentages are skewed in that we're looking at a half month of 16-17 operations versus a full year, plus 17-18 featured 4 months of Milpitas. So I think I'll maybe more focus on the two bars to the left, which is the 17-18 actuals and then 17-18 budget. And so for revenues, we fell about $4 million short of budget for the fiscal year. Had to do, if you may recall, in the mid-year budget, we did lower our load forecast by about 5%. And then we had a very cool September, and this is why we didn't hit our numbers. So just a reminder that we are impacted by weather volatility. Cost of goods sold is essentially power supply. We ended about 7 million higher on power supply versus budget. That had to do with about a 3-week window in the July-August timeframe where we had extremely high power prices. We had new load with Milpitas, and we were just perfectly hedged, so we had to buy some expensive power in that 3-week time frame. And our operating margin then was about 11 million short of budget, but our net position actually ended up being about 6 million short of budget. So the reason why the improvement between operating margin and net position has to do with we didn't spend any money on programs, so we improved our utility, but still ended up with a very healthy number. And that's just the 4-year review of the actual statement. Our balance sheet, focus on current assets certainly grew. Our non-current assets, that grew over year over year, has to do with the money that we have as collateral with PG&E as well as CAISA. And then non-current liabilities would have been the member agency loan, and we paid that off and we ended the year at 0. And lastly, we'll talk about the so our cash flow. So the driver of our increase in cash flow is from operations. You can see the growth there. Financing activities, so the 6 million drop year over year has to do with paying off the outstanding line of credit as well as the loan. Investing went up based on the amount of cash we had, and then of course the net increase in cash, so we ended the year right around 60 million in cash. And just look at it, there's many ratios you can look at, but just a couple of high-level solvency ratios. So we started last year at around a 2.0 current ratio, meaning that we have $2 for every $1 of current liability. We have current assets to cover it, and we increased that for 17 and 18 to close to 3, so a very healthy number there. And then our debt to equity, very high in 16 and 17, which would be expected as we were starting the business up and we only had a half year of revenues. For 17 and 18, we brought that down to less than 0.5. And we should end this year, all things being equal, somewhere below 0.4.
So, Don, I just have to say, for these sorts of graphs, can you put the little parentheses in there? Higher is better, lower is better?
You got it.
So that when people look at them, they're not trying to decide did something go right or wrong, especially when they're opposite right next to each other.
When you look at this stuff, you think of those things.
Both of them are better.
That's right. And just look at the finance and administration side of it. There's many great things that the agency did, but just focusing on the finance and administrative side of it, bringing on City of Milpitas improved our bottom line as well as increased our load. Rate competitive. We started off the year at 1% below PG&E. We finished at 6% below PG&E in discount. This group went through many meetings on the better benefits and the compensation study. Debt management, repaid the member agencies as well as secured a $20 million line of credit. That now is a good decision that we did that. Received some awards, went through a finance and IT initial audits, and we're going through those now, and developed many board policies to protect the agency's assets. So we had a good year.
I got to ask, go back.
Yes.
Just on the benefits, this is more for you, Gresh. You know, part of the whole thought process that we have, we want to attract and retain. How are we doing on turnover?
Turnover's pretty good.
So the last person to leave was in October, was Sergio.
Yeah.
And that's been about it for the last 6 months or so.
Yeah, so it was Dennis before that, Sergio,
Stephanie in the summer.
Stephanie. But I think overall, I've got some feedback from employees and also other CCAs. The employees are really, the benefits that the board has approved are really very good. Not only monetarily, but just from a common sense standpoint.
Right.
The closure during Christmas was a real big deal because no one was here, so everyone could actually take time off versus, hey, I'm off, but I'm still tethered to my phone.
No,
which
that
is
is-
how we typically
Yeah,
work.
was the only good benefit at Apple, was that nobody was working that week.
Right, so you're untethered really, and I think right now, in fact, the 3 individuals here of the admin team are working super hard on putting together the new benefits package. So the FSA, the HRA, and there's a bunch of education going on. In fact, we've utilized some of those benefits in attracting people. So in salary negotiations, we've had to explain the value, because people just read the benefits, sometimes it's like, oh yeah, no big deal. So we've actually had to say, when you monetize this, it's actually 6% more. And so that's been very good.
We're just, my hope was that we did all this stuff, or some way that that you could monitor, track, report, I don't know. But it's not just that we did the benefits, hopefully the employees feel that they're valuable.
And I think we made a commitment sometime this summer to come back with a report of how it's going. So it's been well received.
Before everybody leaves.
Sorry. That's not for the camera. And just end it with financial risk, and all of you are aware of these with rates. We're still waiting for final word on PG&E rates.
Nothing yet.
Nope. In fact, the latest I've heard is May get moved to April change, which means for us it would be a May change.
Yeah, Hillary sent something out the other day. It sounded a little less negative than it's been in the past, but
Overall, way better than the budget projections are.
Sorry,
please.
we're actually still making money, and
Mhm.
our client, our customers are still saving 6%, right?
Right, yes.
So in one sense, it's good for us the longer it drags out, because it goes back to the 1%.
Right, I'm not
Well,
rushing to change the rates.
We get to set them to what we need to, right? I mean, the assumption right now is we're going back to 1%, but
Correct.
we'll see how all the dust settles. And I think the 1% hopefully is our worst case. Maybe we just stay there because of the uncertainty, but
At this point, that's my thinking so far in terms of recommendations. I mean, we'll let the numbers settle out, maybe we'll provide another option. But just given the uncertainties that have come in around the RA market, PCIA too, but also PG&E bankruptcy, we're still heading with the 1% recommendation.
So has anybody's Facebook page gotten constant inundation from Monterey about giving back
4 million?
4 million?
Yeah, we haven't talked about the $20 million value that our customers have received.
Giving back 4 million?
Because remember when Tom was here, he was suggesting
the
we give a rebate.
Oh, right, yes,
And they have chosen to go that way, and so now they're really pushing the fact that their
Yeah.
customers are getting rebates.
if we gave a rebate, we'd be all over that too.
Yeah, so, I think, I don't know how prolific it is, because it's just on my feed, but I think we need to be sure we take advantage of something similar.
We should, at some point, when we finish the year, say our customers saved $20 million. And that should be part of some press release push or something. Just so, every time I talk to people who don't know, they get nervous and I say, but you're saving 6% and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, that's good.
So last Sunday, the Mercury News had an article, so we talked about it there. This next week, next Thursday, I'll be at the Los Altos City Council and giving those presentations. So we'll continue to pitch the 20 million.
Yeah.
On power supply and those ROC, our Risk Oversight Committee, we talked about this and prized those folks, but we are seeing favorable PCIA and rates movement, but that may get countered by higher power supply prices that we're seeing. So I wouldn't be surprised we come back to you at the mid-year budget with a significant increase in the power supply budget based on current prices. And then lastly, as Rich mentioned, the PG&E bankruptcy. Probably short-term, not much risk to us as far as cash flow, but this is a 2 to 3 year process, and we'll see what unfolds.
Okay, any questions on this? Okay, good.
Thank you.
Move right along. Next is our CEO.
Yeah, this is more of a placeholder. I wanted to have a meeting to be able to give you an update, so just following on what this report said. So our mid-year budget will not only include updated changes in terms of revenue and expenses based on differences. But also we'll have some increase in legal costs and some consulting costs associated with bankruptcy and associated uncertainty. So we'll be bringing on a few of those kinds of contracts in. So heads up on that.
And I just had a question
Go ahead.
that popped out of my head again. Blame it on foggy brain.
Okay, so that's the CEO report.
Yes.
Going once, going twice, sold. Okay, we'll move on. If it comes back to you, then
I
you
will
can track it
try.
down. Committee or staff comments, remarks? Seeing none, then I think we are going to just be adjourned.